Next Curve.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Next Curve Rethink podcast episode where we break down the latest tech and industry events and happenings into the insights that matter. I'm Leonard Lee, executive analyst at Next Curve, joined by my good friend and fellow industry tech analyst, Prakash Sangam of Tantra Analyst, joining me to recap IFA 2024, which took place in Berlin, Germany, and just wrapped up toward the beginning of last week, right? And we were there the week prior for Lenovo's Innovation World 2024. So it was good to spend some time with you there.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
In Berlin.
Yeah, it was fun time attending Lenovo event and IFA.
Yeah, absolutely. And so glad to have you on, Prakash. And before we get started, remember to like, share, and comment on this episode and subscribe to the Rethink podcast here on YouTube and on Buzzsprout. Take us on the road and on your jog and listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. And also, check out and connect with Prakash and the insightful work he does at Tantra Analyst. Prakash will provide his contact details toward the end of the episode, so stick around. And with that out of the way, Prakash, what'd you think of IFA 2024?
Yeah,
and how many times have you been?
This is my first time, to be honest. So it was like mini CES, right?
Don't tell them that.
Yeah, and yeah, very compact. And it was like, as you mentioned, walking through IKEA store, right? They want you
for my line.
Yeah, they want you to follow a specific pattern, and you have to follow it. It's typical German, right? So
yeah. And we got through it really
interesting. We got to see a lot of interesting stuff, of things that we knew about. Of course, lots of TVs, interesting IoT devices and so on. Yeah, it was a fun day.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think the folks who put on IFA might take offense at you calling a mini CES. I saw some numbers, and I think they drew around 200,000 attendees, which is pretty big, right? I think CES draws maybe about 160.
Yeah.
Right?
Like that,
so it's sprawled out everywhere, right?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of spread, I mean, this was much more contained, right? At Berlin Messe, whereas CES, it's like multiple halls and then multiple hotels, and their convention halls fell. It's almost impossible to move in Vegas during CES. But here, I mean, we're able to get in and get out pretty quickly. It's very well, nice, organized. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just really impressed that you and I, we basically saw everything there was to see, or at least that we thought was worth seeing in the exhibition hall in a matter of like can I say it's a half a day?
I'll say it was a day. I think we went early and then we were out in the evening. Yeah, I think it's more than I would say a day.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to give folks an impression of what it's like, because I always scratch my head wondering how big this event really is, right, in terms of scale. But I like you said, it was laid out like an IKEA store, so it was just so conducive to just going through all the exhibits and getting a good sense of what was being showcased by exhibitors, right? And pretty impressive how quickly we were able to.
Yeah, I mean, unlike CES, which is very intimidating, right? You don't know where you are, where to go. Here, I think it was well managed, so multiple floors on the same building. So it was good. I mean, and the exhibitors were a good, very impressive list as well. We attended just one keynote, right? So, which was okay. It's not as big as the CES keynote halls, but this was, it was decent attendance.
Right. Yeah, and So let's talk about takes. I mean, what were your general impressions, and what were some of the things that you took away at a very high level? You know, we can go down into the weeds later on, but I mean, what were things that you took out?
Yeah, sure. So I think it is a huge China playground, right? So all over the place, it was like Chinese brands, whether Chinese organic brands like Huawei, Honor, and Hisense and others, but tons of European and US brands, which now owned by Huawei, right? So it's Huawei's own, or not Huawei, owned by Chinese firms, be it Toshiba, be it
Hoover.
Yeah, lots of them, and many we found there that they were owned. Those brands are owned by now Chinese. They're no longer owned by. So, which is interesting, right? So, it was that season. I think it's like when a plague, even in China, in CES, you get a lot of Chinese participation. But here it is. I think they kind of dominated the event to a large extent. And then that's one. And second, I think what made it worthwhile for me was checking out the Honor foldable phone, Magic V3, I think, and attended the Honor Magic Book R14, which is powered by Qualcomm X Elite chipset. So we're there for the announcement keynote, and we also checked it out. So I think I'm really impressed by the foldable, how thin it was. It had good grip, pretty high quality, and then the Magic Book was, I mean, it's pretty light, nice, 14-inch. Copilot+PC that you've seen from many vendors. So that is the second highlight, checking that out. And then lot of IoT companies, right? So, be it buy electric bikes, be it home appliances, of course. The center of attraction for any consumer electronics show is huge TVs. We saw like 160-inch TV from I forgot, I think Hisense, and then Samsung, a huge 110 and 140-inch TVs, of course. And then, I mean, I was also impressed with Samsung's huge presence. They also showed their HomePod, Wally, as it's called. So, yeah, I mean, it's impressive. I mean, yeah, it is very much like CES that you'd see in CES.
Yeah.
In a contained, contained fashion. So I would say, if they're taking offense in, if I call it mini CES, how about European version of CES?
Yeah, European, and maybe I don't know, kind of like a chicken or an egg thing. You don't know whether or not things that are announced at IFA are things that are then presented at CES or vice versa, right? But things like the big TVs, transparent displays. I mean, those are things that we were really hot to share at CES. We saw some of those being displayed, like you said. Really, really big TVs, very bright, and also incredibly thin. Remember that? Some of these very large.
But and if you remember, I mean, if you look at CES again, used to be dominated by the TV space by Samsung and LG, but here I think Hisense had a huge, space, and then Chungwang, I think. So they're like a few Chinese brands also had large space with large displays as such. So that's different from that perspective too.
And the company Changhong, I think it's called. Changhong is the one that you're talking about. And I mean, what you really get a sense of is how, like, from the white goods standpoint. So my key takes were there was a huge focus on smart living, right? Smart goods, There was a ton of stuff related to the smart device, making devices smarter. I didn't see so much about the connectivity, like when last few years at CES, Matter was a big matter. And you saw some of it, but not a ton of it. It wasn't necessarily about connecting all these things together. Although you did see some of that in the Samsung booth, which, as you noted, was very large. But oddly, I thought there was this focus on the device. And so whether it's a smart coffee maker, it was about how intelligent you can make this thing and how capable you can make it. And, the other thing is a lot of the Chinese white goods companies are really starting to move up toward premium.
Correct.
And looking at premium, we'll call it use cases such as, wine.
Well, and it's not just use cases. I mean, if you look at the quality and the finishing of these products, and now with some of the Western branding, I mean, you cannot they're really really upscale kind of offerings that they had, right? And then another interesting thing was, I mean, AI was not, I mean, of course, everything was AI enabled or they had some AI, but it was not big in the face like, and everything everywhere was AI, right? That's another, interesting.
That's another
I like
thing
that people are not saying your coffee machine is AI. That's just, you have to buy it. Probably there is some AI, I'm sure. But it is not in your face AI, right? Everything is AI, and then all of that stuff. That is a interesting change, which I like.
That's another thing that I noted as well, that was much more subdued. The only place that you saw generative AI spoken about quite a bit was in the KT startup zone. And so you and I checked out the hair loss application, right? Remember that? I don't know how well that worked, but
there at least. But it's interesting.
I don't know. I like you, I think, got the sense, or like you, I got the sense that the Europeans are not as crazy about all this chat GPT stuff. And very, very few AI avatars that we encountered didn't work well. I think you recall
one or two of them, and I mean, just kept repeating no matter what you asked, it was like a broken record, right?
Broken record.
It was anything but smart. Yes.
And so I think you're absolutely right. Not a lot of in-your-face AI, but functionality, smart functionality that actually works, is practical. Again, at the device level, and surprisingly, not this broader IoT theme that I thought we would see. And then, hey, let's talk about XR AR, because that was one of the things I was curious about, is how much was actually there. And I don't think we encountered it all that much, or at least
correct. Compared to like if you had gone like 2 years ago, then everybody would have, no matter what they did, had an AR or VR glass on their booth, but hardly anything, right? We checked out only a couple of them, one of them working on with the Qualcomm chipset with dual 4K display. They said they're still working on it. The demo was not that great, but they said they're working on it, and but
there are a lot of companies, I think, that feel that they're not really smart glasses. They call them smart glasses, but more like
VR glasses,
glass peripherals. Sort of like what the Meta Ray-Bans are like, right? That's not really a smart device, because you're tethered to your smartphone. Your smartphone's actually doing everything that's smart. These are peripherals, and that's what they seem to be focusing on more. Of course, you can offer these at a much lower price point than, let's say, a Vision Pro, a much lower price point, but
and much lighter on your head and nose as well, right? With of course limited use case and limited utility.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, mostly for entertainment, consumption on a plane
Yeah.
or what have you, or maybe even some productivity on
Yeah.
a plane. So maybe some of those use cases, but
I mean, that's my view has been for a long time on these VR glasses. I think the biggest proven use case so far has been content consumption on these things, right? Everything else is, in my view, speculated at a very early stage. But content consumption, you have your own whatever infinite screen TV, like your personal IMAX. I think that works and people like it. I think the only question is whether somebody will pay $3,500 for it or not, right? So, or if somebody comes with more reasonable pricing, I think people will buy it. Just a viewer, not all the other things.
That's the thing. I think some of these vendors are tuning into that lower price point by basically stripping this concept of a Vision Pro down to the cheapest, simplest form, right? And so in that way, I think you're correct, because these are really not that smart. They're nowhere near as intelligent as a Oculus, a 3 or a Vision Pro. Nowhere close, right?
Yeah.
Very simple. It's, to your point, for the consumption of content.
Yeah.
And
by the way, I don't know. They saw Snap announce their latest AR headset today.
oh no, I didn't.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. Looks very, developer set, not for users, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the one thing is you do get an impression of how far ahead Apple Vision Pro is.
Yeah,
above everyone
it's
else.
kind of a more finished product rather than a demo product, right? That you see a lot of times. Yeah.
So yeah, there was that, and then I guess one of the areas I think that is kind of formative at the moment, or is in an early stage, is sort of this idea of contextual computing, that it transcends this idea of IoT, right? And it's about a lot of what people are talking about related to agents, but more specifically for your home living, right? Where devices in the home are more cognizant of your situation and context and able to more intelligently, orchestrate your home experience. Nascent, bits and pieces. Yes, there's talk about matter, but these frameworks still seem to have a long way to go to gel. But you did get some sense that there's interest in contextual computing for the home, and so that's the
right now it is it is kind of there's a lot of friction. You have to make an extra effort to do it, which kinds of beats the purpose. So if it is somehow integrated, all connected together, that's why I think companies like Samsung, who have many things, many consumer items at your home, can do a better job if you can focus on it, right? So the smart home experience is has a lot of hurdles in the such you have to do extra work to get it working, which kinds of beats the purpose. I think when it becomes very cohesive and part and parcel of what you're doing, that's when it makes sense. And for that to happen, I think you need a ecosystem which is all very well connected and each understands every other device's position, capabilities, actions, context, and so on, right? So I think it is very hard for a heterogeneous mix of vendors to provide it. I mean, Matter kind of trying to do that in a common fabric for all devices to connect. But I think my bet would be on a single provider, single vendor doing it. I think Apple kind of is doing a great job with other applications, but other devices. But if you take Samsung, which has almost every device in the home, be it your phone, tablet, wearable, watch, fridge, washing machine, dishwasher, TV. I think they have a much better chance of making sure everything is smart, not because you want it to be smart, but they're all connected. You don't have to think twice on doing anything. So I think the value of smartness comes in. It preempts and does the things on your behalf without you thinking about it, right? Other than, hey, I have a smart device, let me go to my phone, connect to it, and start. I mean, I could have just walked to the thing and started myself, right? So,
it's a little tricky though, right? Because if you're pushing such a broad and comprehensive portfolio, people accuse you of pushing a monopoly or walled garden. So
correct. So I think there is a way that you basically allow basic level of interconnect with through, say, Matter or whatever, and then
I think
elevated experience people want to have. I think there is. I mean, success proves it, right? People need that kind of. I don't want to think about what is connected to what, how is connected. I want things to work with the push of a
button, right? No, I'm just thinking, just don't tell any of this stuff to Open RAN person. Okay.
I think is in a different cycle altogether. They want to do, test the water on the other side, but this thing, the IoT is on the other side, is seeing the pain points and trying to move this side.
I mean, there's a ton of fragmentation. I've been in this smart home thing for a really long time, ever since I was in the IBM, and it's just interesting to see how long it's taken for these solutions to really come together. Even with enablers like Matter, at the connectivity level, just how difficult it is for these solutions to form themselves into an easier button that can then bring a system together and to deliver these smart home experiences. I thought AI PC was a big theme at IFA 2024. It was just not a big theme on the exhibition floor per se. Probably outside of, let's say, the honor booth. And maybe parts of the Samsung booth, actually the Samsung booth as well. But Lenovo had their event, right? Their tech innovation world. You then had the chip makers also have their own events, right? So Intel, you had Qualcomm, you had AMD, all of these key participants in the AI PC ecosystem also make a showing. And of course, you can't forget Microsoft there with Copilot plus PC. And that really is the big thing that's happening with quote unquote AI PC, is now you have all three main chip players coming in with Copilot plus PC capable. Like I think you mentioned before, the Snapdragon X series really kicked off Copilot plus PC back at when it was announced in partnership with Microsoft at Microsoft Build.
We saw so much, and we saw and talked about Copilot places so much at the Lenovo event. I think it was less of a focus for us at IFA, but probably walking in. And I'm sure even on AI side, if you attended the keynotes and others, I think would have been a major theme as well, right? So I mean, it's big event for AI PCs, right? So you had come before, now the other two jumping into the fray, and they already have a device in the market, especially for the enterprise market. So I mean, it basically kind of shows that AI PC, Copilot plus PC, not AI PC, Copilot plus PC is real, right? How much AI you use in those PCs, I think, is a separate matter. I think, but this vision of more than 1 day or multi-day battery life, very thin, high performance PC kind of era has begun, I think, right? So
I think the AI part is a little separate from the power efficient. stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Power efficiency is probably, that whole story is probably 80% CPU, right? More efficient core and core designs for the CPU.
Correct.
And maybe 20% MPU, right? Where you have
now. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
going forward, I mean, so right now most of the workload is on CPU. So the CPU performance directly proportional to how good your CPU is, right? But the vision is going forward a lot of applications which can be moved to NPU, especially in the enterprise scenario, security applications, and other things that run 24/7. Those could be moved to NPU, which will improve the performance. So if you have a good NPU, the view is even when that happens, you have similar performance maintaining. So I would say, over a period of time, instead of the performance of laptops going down, degrading, you at least maintain, or if things are same or better, it could improve as well, right? As and when more these apps are moved to, workloads are moved to NPU versus CPU.
Yeah, and I think it's going to start with functions more than apps themselves, right?
Correct.
We'll see how all this works out. A lot of the justification for so many tops, right? The 40 minimum 40 MPU tops is really to support this thesis that you're going to have a large language model or a small language model of some sort, either one or many of them running persistently on your device. Let's talk about the Honor announcements, because I thought those were pretty big. You've already mentioned Honor Magic V3. I'm not a big fan of the foldables, right? There's a lot of reasons why I think it's just not a category that's meaningful quite yet, right? I have to be honest. The first time I picked up the Magic V3, I was like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was almost like a mind-changing moment.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in foldable. I love them. I mean, even then it was a wow effect for me because how thin it is. I mean, we did the comparison, right? It is as thick as a regular smartphone that you have.
Well, it was as thick as your S23 Ultra, right? Which was really shocking. Yeah.
And then it has nice grip as well. Although a lot of times, I mean, it gets slippery with the surface. They have a nice textured surface which gives a really good grip, which is more important from foldable than others because of their weight. And it was very light as well. So I was blown away with how thin and how light it was as well.
Yeah, really, really shocking. And I think according to Honor, it's just 9.2 millimeters thick, folded.
Yeah.
Right. We're talking about thinner than a S23 Ultra, Galaxy S23 Ultra folded. The only thing though I thought was kind of big was the camera assembly, because they have this periscope telephoto mechanism. That whole assembly was rather big. So while one side, when it's opened up, it's thin, you still have this thick portion, which is the camera assembly. But I think it has a pretty good camera. It's probably rated really well.
So I don't know. I don't work with the Honor, but it had the hallmarks of Huawei design in it. I mean, I know Huawei's. I saw their first generation, forgot their name, foldable. In terms of look and feel, it more looked like the Huawei one. So I'm sure there's a lot of. I mean, I'm assuming here. I don't know for sure, but there is a lot of knowledge from Huawei with foldable
no doubt
device, right? So
there's no doubt. The engineers.
Somebody tells you, and then somebody tells you that it is Honor V3 device, you would easily confuse it for a Huawei device for sure.
Well, it is Honor though. I mean, it's a separate company, separate brand. It's just that they're cut from a common cloth, right?
Right. And that was visible was my point.
And oddly, Honor was sort of the mid-tier brand for Huawei.
Correct.
Before it was quote unquote spun out. But the other thing, and this was powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is kind of
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it has some pretty powerful camera capabilities as well as all the other cool functions that you would see in a foldable. So that was really impressive. The other thing is, when we were there, we discovered that they were going to unveil the Magic Book Art 14.
Yeah.
And George Zhao, who is the CEO of Honor, went up on stage and he presented. So that was that keynote that we were at.
Yeah.
It was attended by, folks from Qualcomm as well as Microsoft.
Yeah.
And that we were anticipating the Snapdragon X Elite version, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of this new laptop. They do also have a Intel Evo version, but that's powered by a Core Ultra Meteor Lake. So afterwards we went back up to the Honor booth and I checked out both, and I noticed that they're not running the latest Intel Core Ultra 200V, which is Lunar Lake.
Yeah.
And that's not out yet quite yet. So
and surprisingly they have the same name, so I was surprised. So you have to make sure both have the Intel version and Snapdragon version have the same name. Both are called Magic Book 14 Art. So that's interesting. So whoever is buying got to make sure they look at the sticker on the laptop. Cheap is it?
You have to make sure. The Snapdragon one is going to have the Snapdragon logo, and I noticed that the Intel one has the Evo
logo,
logo or sticker on it. But what did you think about the magnetic camera?
So I mean, I'm undecided, I would say. One, because it is not mounted at all. So just to be sure, so it's basically the camera is not on the display itself. So it is a detachable camera that you can stow in the side of the laptop, and it is magnetically attached, and you can basically attach it as a front camera or a back camera. So that's interesting. But a person like me who fumbles quite a lot, I mean, I have every chance of losing it and not having a camera when you really want it. But otherwise, it gives 100% peace of mind, right? That nobody is hacking into my camera, although it looks off and it's not recording or whatever. So that is that benefit. But there's every chance that you would lose it, and then you have to either buy a new one or be without a camera on a laptop, which would be very inconvenient for you.
I was a little bit on the fence about that one. I thought it was cool, but the first thing that came to mind is I would lose this.
Exactly.
And then I would have to buy a replacement.
If they were like you can push it in or out or something like that, I don't know, then it'll be the display space will be taken off. So it's hard to decide which way.
Prakash, thanks for joining me again. It was fun being in Berlin with you and sightseeing and attending IFA 2024, as well as Lenovo's Innovation World 2024. And so you want to tell our audience how they can get in touch with you as well as tap into your research?
Absolutely. It's great to be again on your webcast and podcast, Leonard. So all of my research is on my website, www.tantraanalyst.com. You can also see here on the top here. And I write for Forbes, USA Today, and also have a podcast called Tantra's Mantra, on which I had Leonard many times. So check it out, and comment, like, and share as much as we can.
Awesome. I think that was my line, but appreciate that. And thanks everyone once again for joining us. And please subscribe to our podcast, which will be featured on the Next Curve YouTube channel. Check out the audio version on Buzzsprout and find us on your favorite podcast platform. Also subscribe to the Next Curve research portal at www.next-curve.com for the tech and industry insights that matter. And until next time, take care. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.